A glass slips off the edge of the counter, and before you know what's happening, your hand is already there. You caught it. You didn't decide to catch it. There was no moment where you thought, "That's falling. I should reach out." Your arm simply moved, and only afterward did the thought arrive, along with a strange little jolt of surprise at your own body. You probably think of that as fast reflexes, a neat trick your nervous system pulls off. But the real answer is far stranger. Because in that moment, something acted on your behalf, made a decision, and executed it perfectly, all before the part of you that calls itself you had any idea it was happening. And it isn't rare. It's happening constantly. Right now. To understand it, you have to give up an idea you've probably carried your whole life. The idea that there's a single you sitting somewhere behind your eyes, watching the world, weighing options, and then sending commands down to a body that obeys. That model feels obviously true. It's also, in many situations, backwards. Start with the simplest case. Imagine your hand touches something scorching hot. You yank it away. Now, how long did that take? Almost no time at all. And here's the part that should unsettle you slightly. The signal that pulled your hand back never reached your brain first. It traveled up your arm to your spinal cord, and your spinal cord made the call and sent the command straight back down. Your hand was already moving before your brain had been informed there was a problem at all. The pain arrives after. Your brain gets a notification about a decision that was made without it. Think about what that means. Part of your nervous system is authorized to act on your behalf without checking in. Not because your body is careless, but because in the situations that matter most, waiting for the conscious mind would be too slow. And too slow over the long run of human history meant dead. So why is your conscious mind so slow? Because it's doing something expensive. Conscious deliberation involves gathering information, comparing it with memory, imagining outcomes, weighing options. That's powerful. And it's what makes you capable of planning a career or building a bridge. But it's not built for speed. And the world your ancestors lived in did not always give them the luxury of time. Consider what that world demanded. A rustle in the grass. A shape moving in your peripheral vision. A snake on the path in front of you. If your ancestors stopped to consciously evaluate the situation, to consider whether the shape was a predator or a shadow, that pause could be the last decision they ever made. So evolution did something clever. It built a shortcut. The neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent his career mapping this shortcut, and what he found reshaped how we understand fear. He described two routes that a threatening signal can travel through the brain. One is the long route, the careful one, where information travels up to the cortex to be identified and evaluated. Is that a snake or a curved stick? The other is a fast, crude route that runs almost directly to the amygdala, a small structure deep in the brain that acts as a kind of alarm system. The fast route is not smart. It's blurry. It can't tell a snake from a stick, but it is quick. And so your body reacts to the possibility of a threat before the rest of your brain has confirmed there is one. That's why you jump back from a coiled garden hose, heart hammering, and only a half second later feel faintly foolish as your cortex catches up and reports that it's just a hose. Feel foolish about that if you want, but consider the math your ancestors were running. Jump at 100 sticks and you lose a little dignity and some energy. Fail to jump at one snake and you have no descendants. A system that overreacts. Fast, beat a system that reasoned carefully, slowly. You are descended from the flinchers. So who is really in charge in that moment? You? Or a structure that made the call, moved your body, and only told you afterward? Now this gets stranger. Because it isn't just emergencies. Your body seems to know things before you do, even in calm, ordinary decisions. In the 1990s, the neuroscientist Antonio Damasio and his colleague Antoine Bechara ran an experiment that has puzzled people ever since. They gave people a simple card game. 4 decks. Pick a card from any deck, win or lose, play money. What the players didn't know is that 2 of the decks were rigged to be bad, offering big wins but devastating losses over time, while the other 2 were safe, offering modest, steady gains. The players had no idea about this at the start, and they played, and gradually, most of them figured out which decks were dangerous. But here is the finding that made it famous. The researchers were also measuring tiny stress responses in the player's skin. And those stress responses started appearing when players reached toward the bad decks well before the players could consciously say which decks were bad. Their bodies flagged the danger first. Their hands began to hesitate. Only later did the conscious explanation catch up. Damasio built a whole idea around this, which he called the somatic marker hypothesis. The proposal is that your body doesn't just carry out decisions, it participates in making them. Physical states, a tightening in your chest, a subtle unease, a shift in your gut, act as signals that bias your choices before you can articulate why. That vague feeling of something's off about this may not be mystical intuition. It may be your body reporting a pattern it detected before your conscious mind finished the analysis. You have felt this. The person who seemed fine, but something made you uneasy. The offer that looked good on paper while your stomach quietly disagreed. You probably called it a gut feeling and half dismissed it. But the gut feeling isn't the absence of thinking. It's thinking of a different kind, arriving through a different door, one that doesn't announce itself in words. And then there's the experiment that pushed all of this into genuinely uncomfortable territory. In the 1980s, the researcher Benjamin Libet ran a study that people still argue about today. He asked participants to do something trivial. Flex their wrist whenever they felt like it. No cue, no pressure, just move when the urge arrives. While they did this, he measured their brain activity, and he asked them to note the exact moment they became consciously aware of the decision to move, using a fast-moving clock. What he found was this: a specific pattern of brain activity called the readiness potential began building before participants reported being aware of deciding to move. The brain appeared to be preparing the action before the person consciously knew they had chosen it. Now, it's important to be careful here, because this experiment has been debated for decades. Some researchers argue the readiness potential may reflect background noise or general preparation, rather than a specific decision already made. Others question how accurately anyone can report the exact instant of an intention. The interpretation is genuinely contested, and honest scientists disagree about what it proves. But even the most cautious reading leaves you with something remarkable. The feeling of deciding, that crisp sense of, I chose this right now, is not a simple readout of what your brain is doing. It's a construction, something assembled slightly after the fact and handed to you as though it came first. Which raises a question worth sitting with. If your body moves first and the explanation arrives second, What exactly is that voice in your head doing? Here's one way to think about it. Your conscious mind may be less like a commander barking orders and more like a press secretary. It doesn't make every decision. It receives them, interprets them, and constructs a coherent story about why they happened. And it's very good at this. So good that you rarely notice the gap. You've experienced the gap without recognizing it. You snap at someone and only afterward realize you were exhausted. You feel dread about a meeting and then invent a reason for it. You catch the glass and think, wow, good reflexes, as though you did it. In each case, the action or feeling came first, and the narrator supplied the reason after seamlessly with total confidence. This can sound diminishing, as though you're a passenger. But look at it the other way. That fast wordless system isn't a stranger who hijacked you. It is you. An older layer of you, shaped over an immense span of time to keep you alive when there was no time to think. It caught the glass. It pulled your hand from the heat. It made you uneasy about the person who turned out not to be trustworthy. It has been working on your behalf your entire life, asking for no credit and mostly getting none. And knowing this changes what you do with it. It means that vague physical unease deserves a hearing rather than dismissal. Not blind obedience because the fast system is crude and can be wrong. It flinches at hoses and can be badly miscalibrated by anxiety or past pain. But when your body objects to something and your reasoning can't say why, that's worth pausing on rather than overruling. Something in you may have processed a pattern your words haven't reached yet. It also means being gentler with yourself about reactions you didn't choose. The flinch, the flash of anger, the surge of anxiety before a moment you knew was harmless. Those weren't decisions you failed to make correctly. They were older systems doing their job, sometimes imperfectly, in a world very different from the one they were built for. What you control is not the arrival of the reaction. It's what you do in the seconds after it lands. So the next time your body moved before you do, notice it. Notice how the action arrives first and the story arrives second, and how quickly the story pretends it was there all along. A glass slips off the edge of the counter, and before you know what's happening, your hand is already there. Not because something took over, because the oldest part of you, the part with no words and no need for permission, has been quietly catching things for you your entire life. Long before the part that calls itself you ever thought to look.